What's going on, everyone? This is Robert Anthony for Anthony Talks Too Much, and today I'm going to finally be talking about the Emirates redundancy period. In June of 2020, during the peak COVID pandemic, Emirates Airline decided to lay off about 30,000 of its workforce. I'm talking pilots, cabin crew, management, and it upended a lot of people's lives. And I haven't really spoken about this yet or shared my journey and my transition back to the US, and I'm gonna do that today. So you know my style of vlogging is just to sit here and talk to you guys like a off-the-cuff conversation. So grab your tea, your coffee, your adult beverage of choice, and let's get started because I got a lot to say. I'm gonna try and do this in chronological order and explain things to you guys as it happens. It has been a long time and I didn't want to share my journey. If you watch some of my other vlogs, I primarily didn't want to talk about this because I wasn't ready. I didn't want to come on the internet and speak ill of Emirates Airline because it really was the time of my life. Are there things I disagree with in terms of how the company is run, how the management treats people, ethics, questionable ethics when it comes to work legalities and crew rest, how passengers treat people? Of course, you know, we go on and on about this. No job is perfect at the end of the day. So I really wanted to come at this with a fresh perspective, not like a perspective of a scorned ex, you know, that had just gotten out of a relationship and wanted to speak very poorly of the other person. I also was going through a really difficult time, and I share that in one or two of my other vlogs. You know, it was a big deal to move back to America, not only when I wasn't ready, but when so many crazy things were happening there. You know, we were still coming off the Trump presidency, this psychopath trying to stage a coup to basically stay in power, and kind of seeing how America is starting to change and the difficulties that now my nation is facing as well. It was also difficult. I went through a lot of loss. So all of these things, you know, just kind of culminated in me not really wanting to come online and speak about this period of leaving Dubai yet. And especially then I got caught up in being hired as a flight attendant in the US. So I was busy with training and starting that new job. So it's been like quite a 2-year journey. And I feel now, since I'm back in Dubai, this is actually my second trip visiting Dubai in the past year. It's only fitting that while I'm here, literally in Dubai, I can share this story with you guys because now Emirates is going on a worldwide hiring tour. And I do want people to know, you know, what are the truths in terms of working for this company? What is it actually like? And how can you manage your expectations so you know what you're getting into? So let's just start with the overall basic message that if you want to come and have an experience of a lifetime and see places, meet people that you'll never meet, and live in this awesome city, I highly recommend applying for Emirates Airline. And this is coming from someone that I used to fight this company tooth and nail. I'm sure one of the reasons I was made redundant was because I was known to be a very vocal and difficult crew member. Not in terms of I was not a good worker. I actually had an excellent work performance file. I was constantly being given compliments from passengers, from other crew members, from supervisors on the flight, and I actually kept all of those compliments and I made a file. I also was a really high duty-free seller, so I made the company lots of extra money. At the end of the day, what you need to know about this company is they do not care about your performance. It's all smoke and mirrors. They might say they do. They're going to tell you that there's a file, that your compliments are going in. All of that is BS. This company only cares about attendance. They want a robot to get on board, do what they're trained to do, and that's it. So don't go above and beyond. Don't be stressing yourself. None of that is going to affect your performance. Now, who's to say this might change? You know, during my tenure there, we did have actually an American come in as a powerful position. She came in as vice president of cabin crew, and she was trying to make some changes, trying to make the upgrades be based on merit, not just time. So, you know, this vlog is being recorded in, what are we in? August 2022. Things might change. People might come in, management might change, and I hope it does because I think the structure of the airline and the package that they give to crew is really great. You know, it's just that the management and the treatment are a little difficult, I think, especially when you're coming from a Western culture like I'm coming from the US, where we have unions and workers' rights and all that sort of thing. And we're used to having a dialogue with management when we don't agree with things. And that's, open and available in the US. So I would say that was the learning curve for me. You have to manage your expectations. You guys can watch tons of YouTube videos, and this is not going to be my channel about like bad mouthing Emirates or experiences working with the airline or people, because ultimately that's going to be anywhere. Any airline you go to, it doesn't matter. And what I want to share is that you do need to manage your expectations, right? Nobody's forcing you to come work here. You are electing to come and work in a foreign country, in the Middle East, in the Gulf, where they have a very different mentality of how they treat workers, how things should be run. And at the end of the day, you have to just accept that if you want to come for this experience, because this experience is a once in a lifetime experience. And the reason it is that is because nowhere else in the world can you have this operational setup that you have with Emirates. And that's because they micromanage and they control everything. And that's how they choose to do their business. So they're able to create these packages where they can give you an apartment to live in. They can do your dry cleaning. They can give you a bus that picks you up for work. There's so many great things about working here that, frankly, a lot of people, even myself, take for granted because you don't really have anything to compare it to. And now that I've started as a flight attendant in the US, I can see these comparisons and I'm like, wow, there was actually like many, many good things about working there that I didn't really truly appreciate until it was gone. But the main thing is, yes, you'll come for an amazing experience. Does your work performance matter? Yeah, obviously you need to do the job and like you should do it well. But I stressed myself going above and beyond on every flight, trying to accumulate this file of compliments because I really wanted to be promoted and to work up the ranks. So Emirates works in a hierarchy. It's not like the US where you can just work any position. So you start in economy class, and then when the company needs more people, they'll upgrade you to business class, then to first, then to supervisor, and then to purser, the lead of the entire flight. So how to get into this story the best way? I want to just give you some background on why I think I was made redundant and other people were made redundant, and then I'll share how they kind of did it. But essentially, I joined Emirates probably at their last huge peak, and I think we're going to see them go through another one right now. But essentially, it was in 2016. They were doing massive hiring. They were doing tons of promotion in the US because this was when they were still trying to increase their name and their brand recognition in the US. I don't know if you saw the commercial with Jennifer Aniston. She actually did 2 for them. So this was a really big push in American media for them. I think it was the only time that an actress was actually ever hired to promote an economy class. So they were hiring tons of Americans, and they were hiring so many people at once that I was offered to join in like December of 2015, but they couldn't actually get me to Dubai for training until June 2016, so like 6 months later. So that's how busy they were filling their training college. So when I joined, obviously there was tons of people. They were ramping up their A380 routes. So the A380 is a bigger plane. They need more crew to work on it. And they were getting rid of their smaller planes. They were phasing out their A320s. So at this point, the company was transitioning from like a multi-fleet to like a dual fleet. So they were only going to have the Boeing planes, the 777, which is a wide body, and the A380, which is obviously the double decker. So they told us, when we joined, like, you can expect to be in economy about 1 year, 1.5 years, and then by year 2, you'll be upgraded to business. So this is kind of the expectation they put out. Unfortunately, when I joined, we were like hitting all of these highs, like winning awards, #1 airline in the world, best economy class, and then things started to get shaky. There was some shakeups in management, structural changes, new management coming in, and a lot of cost cutting that wanted to be done. The company wanted to save money. That's one thing you'll learn if you come to work here. The Gulf is all about saving money. And it's funny because you think this airline has so much money, but no matter what, they want to be penny pinching. And that's probably how they're going to end up dominating the world because of this mentality when it comes to how they run their company, and that's great for them. Every business at the end of the day is here for profit, right? They're not here to make your life great. They're here to make money. So what that caused for us was essentially a hiring freeze. So they were no longer recruiting, because Emirates has a constant turnover of cabin crew. So they always are going around, whether it's a big push or not, they're still hiring people because people are resigning or getting fired, and there's always like gaps that need to be filled. But this was very severe for this new management to come in and say, one of the ways that we're going to save money is we're going to completely stop hiring, halt all the hiring. So that meant everybody was frozen in their grade. So nobody was being promoted. And in fact, they started removing crew from flights. Like, we had additional positions to kind of alleviate some of the workload, because it's hard. And I will say that you should know what you're getting into. This isn't a cakewalk, right? This isn't the US or the UK, where the service is very limited and you're primarily there for a safety role. You are here to be trained in safety, but you are primarily here for a customer service oriented role. And you should know that. This is what the company expects, and this is what the passenger expects. So if you come in thinking something else, you're gonna have a really hard time adjusting. Now, for me, this wasn't a problem. I had worked overseas in Australia before. I knew what I was getting into. I didn't have this dream image, of Emirates. I thought it was going to be a lot more glamorous than it was working in economy class, but that's a whole different discussion. You can look yourself on some vlogs about that from others, because I want to keep it real and like positive. I don't want to go into all of the negatives. If it's things you guys are really interested in about, I'll share it with you. But I just feel like ultimately, at the end of the day, there's going to be positive and negatives with everything. So I want to share the positive parts of this job, and then also the things that they did wrong, like the redundancies. So we're getting there. Obviously, I'm talking a lot. This is 12 minutes already and I haven't even gotten to it. But just the context of the situation was, this is how we were hired. We thought we would be upgraded soon. All these structure changes happened, and we were frozen in our grade for like years. So I was in economy ultimately for over 4 years. And now, 6 years later, my colleagues and friends that are still here that weren't made redundant, they're just being upgraded. So it was crappy timing. That's the bottom line. And that's what every airline is, really. It's about getting in at the right time. Getting in at the right time for seniority. In the US, it's about getting in at the right time so you can get off reserve quickly. So this is just the airline industry. You can't say it's fair or it's not fair. It's just a matter of timing. Was the situation very unfortunate? Yeah, because at Emirates, economy class is like a really bad hazing. It's not something that you can really put up with for too long, because just the sheer amount of people. And that's the bottom line. The company will try to spin it in other ways. There's not enough crew. There's too many passengers on these flights, and people in economy expect a lot. It's nonstop call bells, nonstop people coming to the galley. You never have a flight where you're just like sitting and chilling. That happens more so like in business class. For instance, business, they have a very detailed service. They have like 80 passengers to serve on the 380, but once the service is done, it's kind of like chill. Nobody wants too much. Economy, it's nonstop. So because of the removal of the crew and the hiring freeze, they also started to increase our flying hours. So when I joined, you used to be able to like travel on days off. You could get 5 days off in a row to use your benefits to go to Europe. This was obsolete. In order to save money, the company realized that, we don't need to hire as many crew. We can just keep the crew that we have, and we can maximize their flying schedules to the extreme legalities. So we went from, like an average of 80, 90 hours to over 100. Around 100, the company said they promised they would stop rostering people over like 105. So that's a lot when you're thinking of international flying and being between all those time zones. You land back from Asia, and then a couple days later you need to go to the US. This is very exhausting on your body. So the crew were also being worn down, and the management wasn't listening to people. They didn't care. During this time, we also had our vice president of cabin crew leave the company. She was most likely fired because drama within the management and disagreements with how to treat the cabin crew. And people were never upgraded. So I think, people, I don't want to say started to take a piss, but if your employer isn't treating you how you feel you deserve to be treated, a lot of people aren't going to respect their employer enough to kind of stand by them. So the crew morale was super, super low. So I'm explaining this all to you because I think it was kind of like the perfect storm of all of these things when COVID hit, because COVID came, who knows what the management thought, I think they thought the world was going to end. But essentially, you have like crew that have been frozen in their grades for years, probably with lots of warnings or lots of absence from work, like not making flights or calling in sick too much, because people were fed up. I'm sure, myself included, I'm not a perfect individual. I definitely had like a poor attendance record. I had a couple incidents that weren't my fault necessarily. Like I lost my passport in New York once, so I was stuck there. Things like this, but the company doesn't see the context of any of that. All they see is your name and your attendance graph. And if you have a lot of missed flights or a lot of attendance issues, they're like, this person is not worth it for us to keep here, even if you're a high performer. I mean, I know people that were made redundant with tons of Najum stars. That's like a really big like award that you get if you go super above and beyond, and they weren't safe. So let me get to the redundancy, I suppose. I just want to make sure I cover managing your expectations, because even though I was in economy for 4 years and it was really tough, I'm telling you, really tough. Some flights you're literally like, what am I doing? Why am I here? This is not worth it. Ultimately, it is. It's an experience that you won't get anywhere else. I'm so happy that I did it. I wish that I got to business class. I think that would have been a lot more enjoyable of an experience. But either way, I'm so proud of the time that I had, because I also did pretty much every single destination. There was just a couple that I didn't get to. So I feel like I really got the full experience in terms of travel. I also had a great apartment. I was downtown. These factors also can influence your experience in Dubai, because you might be in a great accommodation that's brand new in downtown, or you might be in a really old one with mold out in the desert near where they slaughter the animals, So there's many things that can influence your experience here. And the longer you stay, the more you can figure out how to, make it better. Obviously, you're able to change accommodations and things like that. So that's all, an aside. But what happened when COVID hit was basically, I think the company just looked at COVID pandemic as an opportunity to clean house. So you have to remember, here's a company that is always trying to save money. They're going to take every opportunity they can. And part of saving money means getting rid of people that are expensive, because the company can always hire newer people, and they can hire them on cheaper contracts. So you couple that with the fact that, the company had halted all of the upgrades and things for people. They now had a ton of people with questionable attendance files, and maybe warnings, things like that. And they were like, this is probably an opportunity to get rid of all these troublemakers and start fresh. Now, personally, I think this is a stupid mentality, because they're going to go around the world and hire new people that are going to end up being just as troublemakers as others. You know what I mean? But when you're working for a company, you're there to work. Whether you agree with them or disagree with them, you signed a contract, you're there to do a job. And I think the company's mentality, like Emirates' mentality, to fire all of these people that have already proved loyalty, worked there for many years, knew the job, have experience. There's a huge amount of benefit of having people that have experience that only comes from years of working in the aviation industry. To let those people go because of, attendance files or whatnot, I think is being naive, because you're going to hire a new crew that after a couple years, they're going to have just as many attendance issues as the other ones. But this is the Gulf mentality. It's all about turnover. It's all about fresh faces. And Emirates loves very, very young. They only need a small amount of their workforce to continue up the ranks. As the hierarchy increases to business and first and supervisor and purser, they need less and less people. So they don't really want a ton of people aging in the company. They just want the bare amount that they need, and then they want to hire fresh, young, beautiful for economy, because economy is the largest amount of cabin crew that they need. So let's go here. So COVID hits. We all get stranded from flying. Because it's international only, all flights are halted. Now, at this point, we're all celebrating because we are freaking exhausted. I'm telling you, this is how hard the company worked us. And everyone was so happy when COVID hit, because we were finally, we can just sleep in Dubai. Now, we didn't think that this was gonna turn out to be 2 months. So COVID, they started removing us from our rosters in the end of April. And I remember it was March, because March was my top bid, meaning the bid groups rotate, monthly. So March was the time that I was supposed to have gotten all of my best flights for the year. And I did have actually a really amazing trip. It was this 9-day Rio Buenos Aires trip. You go from Dubai to Rio for 2 nights, go to Buenos Aires, Argentina for 2 nights, go back to Rio for 2 nights, and then back to Dubai. So that's a really hard trip to get, something you only get once a year. And I was actually rostered on that trip with a friend of mine, and they slowly started taking away flights, and I was no, because it was just as is, as borders were closing, we were still kind of operating. And then they took away that flight in March, and essentially they grounded all of us and said all the rosters are being removed until further notice. So when this happened, borders are shut, obviously. Some people had gone home. They had taken flights home because they were so scared of the situation. They got stuck overseas. They could never come back. Some of them were either fired or had to resign from overseas. You have to remember what it was like in the pandemic before the vaccine and before all of these things, because we really didn't know what was happening in the world. So I was stuck in Dubai. We were all stuck in Dubai for all of April, all of April. Sorry, I did my months backwards. March, April, May. 3 months we weren't flying, and we were all still employed. Now, this is one of the shady things the company did. So Emirates pays you in 2 ways. You have your basic salary, which is a contractual amount. You are supposed to get X amount of money no matter whether you fly or whether you don't fly. This accounts for boarding and all of the briefings that we have to attend that we're not necessarily paid for. It's a very small amount, but it's a basic amount. So even if you're not flying, you still get this little chunk of money every month. This is in your contract. The amount, it depends, I think, where you're hired from. The company came out and they said, because of the situation, we have to reduce the basic allowance, the basic contract. This wouldn't be allowed anywhere else in the world because it's part of your contract. So I don't care what the situation is. You need to figure that out. That's your business. They basically were because we're halted and we can't fly anywhere, we need to now take away your money. Well, at the same time, we're all stranded here. We're not working. Dubai is very expensive. How do you expect us to live? So it was very shady and not appropriate and frankly unethical, But at the end of the day, you're in the UAE. So just remember, if you come here, even if you have a contract, nothing is guaranteed. They can break things however they want, whenever they want, as they seem fit. So that's what they did. So we're all living in Dubai, not making flying pay on this reduced basic allowance, and essentially waiting for our jobs to resume. They kept putting out, what was strange was they kept trying to be super positive. They were sending us wellness updates and we hope you guys are hanging in there, and here's some health tips, and they were featuring crew and what we were doing in a lockdown, book clubs and fitness things and wellness. And it was kind of this fun time where everyone was finally resting for the first time, but also improving themselves. And it kind of seems we were all in this together. We're all here, we're all trying to improve our mental health. We're taking the time that we'd never had before to do things like read and work on our fitness and improve things. I frankly had a great time when I was in lockdown with my flatmate. We had a lot of fun together. We had a good routine going. You know, we weren't just like bored sitting around. We were like actually doing stuff. And I think I did keto. That's when I did like keto for 2 months, and I documented it there, or I documented it on YouTube. So I had a really good time, like trying things and experimenting. But we all thought eventually by like June, flights would begin to pick up again. So then it started to get into June. We started getting like notices to study some materials because we had to do like an aircraft refresher just for like safety and legality reasons. All like assuming we're going back to work. Like the company's like borders are opening, so we're gonna start doing flights again, cargo flights, whatnot. And then this story from Bloomberg News broke. Bloomberg is a media outlet, I believe, in the UK, and they wrote this story that said Emirates plans to lay off 30,000 of its workforce. And Emirates publicity came out straight away and denied this. Now, keep in mind, we also have been getting letters from His Highness, the Sheikh, and our chairman saying, like, we don't want to lay anyone off. We're going to do everything we can to preserve our workforce. That's why we cut the basic salary to keep everyone's jobs safe. And this wasn't just the cabin crew basic salary. I think like management or like ground staff, you know, they probably get a basic salary too. So keep in mind, this, what I'm talking about is not just focused on cabin crew. This is their entire workforce, right? And then they basically went back on their word. I'll say that the way the company went about it was really shady, and that is the pure honest truth. If they tried to deny that, that's almost a joke because, or that is a joke, not almost a joke. That would be a joke. They went back on their word. They took away our money under the premise of preserving our jobs, and then they fired basically the whole company. Now, when I say fired, it's really the term that they use here is redundant. Being fired means you were fired because you did something wrong or you broke rules or you went through the process of being let go from the company. Being made redundant means it's simply because of this situation that they are determining that your job is no longer safe and they can't continue to pay you for it. So you have to be let go. So the way that it happened was, it was middle of June, and they began with the pilots, because you have to remember these pilots, you know, the 380, at this point the company is still like, you know, what are we gonna do? This is a very expensive plane. It's literally just sitting on the tarmac in Dubai airports, like, you know, a waste. So I think their focus was to get rid of the 380 pilots first, because they knew that the Boeing would be the first plane to kind of resume once they saw like what was going to be happening in the world, if there would even be like a need for the 380. You know, I think at this point we still were like, is the world ending? Like, will there ever be travel again? Like, you know, is travel going to change forever, like because of this? Because it really was travel that accelerated the spread of this virus. I mean, let's be real. Someone's bringing it on a plane and it's spreading all over the world.